Hello, welcome to Friday I'm in Bed.
Podcast for midlife women living their best life, but in bed by 10. This week on Friday I'm in Bed, we're starting with a Charlie XCX conversation that won't go away, where she was told she'll probably want children when she meets the right man. Because apparently, when a woman says she doesn't want kids, it's just a holding statement. We're asking why people still don't believe women when they're crystal clear about their choices, and why it always circles back to a hypothetical man who'll fix it.
Then we're getting into the rise in mental health struggles for women in their late 40s and early 50s. Yes, menopause is part of it. Hormones matter, but so does decades of emotional labour, putting everyone first and quietly holding it all together. We're unpacking what's biological, what's societal, and why midlife women are often expected to just power through.
And finally, the Super Bowl, the halftime show, the Bad Bunny moment, the cultural spectacle, and the adverts in between. From AI to GLP-1 weight loss drugs popping up in primetime slots, we're asking what it says about where we are right now and whether that level of pharma marketing during the biggest show on earth feels normal or not. Autonomy, mental health, and a most watched TV event on the planet. Grab a cuppa. Let's get into it.
Hi, Kate. Trying really hard not to use my weird voice today, and I'm failing miserably.
Hi, Tom. How are you?
Hi, Kate.
How you doing?
It's wet and miserable, and I'm very tired because I stayed up to watch the Super Bowl. So we're going to talk about that later on. But I saw a thing yesterday where apparently it's rained somewhere in the UK every single day in 2026, and that tracks. To be honest, I'm like, yeah, that feels very 2026. I think that might be the vibe we're going into the year with.
I know there's a place, isn't there? I think it's the Southwest. It has rained there every single day. So, yeah, just imagine. And before we know it, there'll be a drought, obviously, because there'll be a hosepipe ban. But that's how it is right now.
So how are you?
I'm okay. It's been a mixed bag of a week. I've been busy as ever. My son had a gig on Thursday night and he had a gig on Friday night. So I was busy going out. It's been, highs, that Super Bowl, as you said. There's been loads of funny things happening. Funny is probably not the right word, but like the Bad Bunny performance, loads to think about and love. And it's also been a bit of a tough week, really. I think the news is just so depressing and so triggering. And it's kind of a week or two halves, feeling really positive, but then also just feeling really quite down about everything. How about you?
Yeah, I get you. My anxiety is through the roof. I have terrible anxiety, and that's one of the reasons that I don't read the news very often, but it's literally inescapable at the moment. Yeah, so I'm so anxious. It's one of the reasons I was late today because, instead of doing all the things I had to do this morning, I decided that my time would be better spent doom scrolling, which is not ever a good use of your time, just to be clear. I did go to Reformer Pilates on Monday night, which is a new thing I've started doing, which helps. It's very humbling.
I know.
Have you done Reformer?
I haven't, because obviously I've had surgery and stuff and I was not well before that. But the kind of, I'm a real yoga bunny and I've been doing yoga since I was 18. And some of the yoga classes I went to and Pilates classes were on machines. So I don't know if it was exactly the same as it is now. And obviously it's exploded now, but I've done lots of things similar to that. And it is humbling and it uses muscles that you didn't realize you had. But I also, because I used to be so good at it 20 years ago, that when now I do anything like that, I know you shouldn't, but I get a little bit frustrated with myself. My body can't quite do what it used to be able to do. And I know that.
You know what? I'm exactly the same. I would love to have known how I would have done at this in 2019 before, all of the cancer, broken back drama. But for now, I'm and there's nowhere to hide because you're in a room with 7 people on a massive machine. It's not like you can put your mat at the back and hide in the dark. It's my legs are what are we doing? So I know. But I'm going to keep going. I'm not giving up. I'm going to be amazing at Pilates on a Reformer very soon. Just you wait.
It's not cheap though, is it? That's the thing that worries me. If I'm going to get really into it, and then I'm going to have to get, a small loan to pay.
Take out a second mortgage. Yeah. Okay. Well, don't let me have my thing.
But Aldi,
I bought a pack of credits, and once they're gone, we'll see where we are.
Absolutely. But last year, I think it was Aldi or Lidl sold a Reformer machine it sold out like that morning, like everybody just bought them. And I know people that went and bought them and then they do it in between at home and like, so, maybe that's the way forward.
Yes, that's lovely, Kate. But you know, I don't know where I'm going to put my shoes in my house, let alone a reformer machine.
Well,
So I'll keep that one on the back burner for when I buy my first mansion.
okay. Anyway,
Anyway, we should probably talk about some more depressing things. So
let's get into it.
So first thing I want to talk about today, because this is very much a me thing, is Charlie XCX. So she was on the Smartless podcast, which I know because I just looked it up, a podcast with Jason Bateman. And some point they asked her about, did she want children? And she said no. And Jason Bateman then went on to do the just classic that everyone in the world has ever done when you say you don't want children. The first up was why. Like, everyone has to be asked that, apparently. Like, if you say, oh, yes, I do want children, no one says, why? But I am going to start doing that. But then he did the classic, oh, you'll change your mind when you find the right man. And she was like, well, I'm married. So, but I thought it was a good one to discuss today for two reasons. One of them is because you have children and I don't. So it's always like a nice, thing when we can discuss that difference. And the other one is it ties back into some of the stuff that's going on here at the moment. I think recently there was I think it was a 2023 blog post by a Reform candidate that has resurfaced, in which he suggests that women should be taxed more if they choose not to have children. And because, I don't know, we're a drain on the state? No idea. But yeah, that was one of his suggestions. And these were supposed to be ways to encourage people to have children. So rather than going for things like paying people fairly, having decent maternity and paternity leave, they went, I know, let's punish people who don't. And there's been other things as well. There was some kind of suggestion in the US, I think, where they were going to send unmarried people without children off to like marriage camps or something, which just sounds horribly. But anyway, there's been a lot of this kind of stuff going around recently, like in some kind of Return to the Handmaiden's Tale kind of world that we're apparently now living in. So I didn't want children when I was a teenager. I certainly had my fair share of elderly relatives telling me I'd change my mind when I got older, and I never did. Obviously, as I'm sat here at, how old am I? 46. I have to think that through. I'm sat here at 46, and the only thing I've got is two pugs, which are behind me right now. So you do have children. Did you always want children?
No, I don't think so. I'm not naturally maternal, let's say. Let's put it that way. As in, I think when I was younger, as in teenager, did I dream of like having a family and things? I don't recall any of that. My dreams were about traveling and, I don't know, reading poetry and doing art. Like, and actually, to be fair, with a man, I often, most of the time, did have a boyfriend, but I think my aspirations were more career focused, but not necessarily like big career, just, being creative and going to as many gigs as possible, which, to be fair, I still do. But did people ask me about it? I think they did. So I got married at 23. And I know definitely people started asking me, when was, I think it's that natural next question for people of a certain age to ask. So definitely, like in 1996, when I got married, it was like, oh, you're going to have children next. That was expected. But I didn't want to. I was just focused on my career, and I was young. I was like, I don't want to. And I'm quite surprised. Well, I'm not surprised. I always say things like I'm surprised, but I'm not really surprised. But I'm annoyed is the word that like, so the older generation in the 90s told me, you'll want kids, but I can't believe we're still saying that. I think, when I grew up, of course people said that to us in our 20s. I mean, our entire existence was about having babies, apparently, and that was the expectation in the 80s and 90s. But we're in 2026. It's quite shocking that we are still asking that question, I think.
I do think a lot of people just make an assumption that that's, the way your life is supposed to go.
Mm.
Even if you go to university, you get a job, you meet a husband, you get married, and then you have children. It's not kind of considered that you're just going to crack on with your career for the rest of your life, because then you'll be horribly selfish, obviously. But yeah, so I do think it's very much an assumption. And I do think that personally, obviously I don't know, but I do think that there is an element in some people where they have children and they don't really give it any thought. They just assume that they're going to have children. So it might not be like a strong drive that they want to have children. They just have this kind of assumption that that's what's going to happen. And maybe they're never taught to question that assumption. So yeah, that's the kind of feeling I got sometimes when people are just so surprised that they have to ask why. Like there has to be a reason not to, rather than a reason to have children. That's the thing that always gets me. Like, and that's why I think I might start asking people why when they tell me I've got kids. So why did you have kids, Kate? Because you obviously had yours a bit later.
Well, let me tell you. As I said, it's not anything I really thought about. My first husband did want children, but I think I just avoided the conversation. And I had my career, and we were young, and we didn't have any money, and actually, I knew I wasn't married to the right person. So this is gonna circle back to the finding the right man thing. But I didn't want to have kids with him, but I didn't really want kids either. Maybe I would have felt differently if I was head over heels in love with him. Who knows? But I do know that when we split up, his friend came round his electrician. He came round to do some work, and he said, "Oh, do you think you'll ever have kids, Kate?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I think I probably will one day." And he said, "Oh, that's so sad, isn't it? Because when you had the ex-husband, you didn't want to have children." And I said, "Well, is that a little bit telling that now I'm thinking, maybe I will now that he's gone?" But also, I think I actually didn't properly think about it until I filled out the Match.com form when I went online when I met my husband, current husband, final husband. Sounds like there's going to be another one.
All of those things sound awful.
Yeah. The form said, basically, obviously this is before Tinder, where it's literally swipe, 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 visual, visual, visual. You had to have a whole document about yourself, and it asked you specific questions about, what your likes were and dislikes and non-negotiables and all sorts of things. And one of the questions was kids, and you had to say, no way, someday, or like, yes. It was kind of like they were the three options. And I thought, I'm gonna have to, because I actually do want to meet somebody. I'm like ready to find somebody to share my life with, and I'm not having any luck around here. Let's, open the pool a bit wider. And so I actually thought about the question, and I wrote yes, I think. I'm pretty sure I wrote yes. And I know my husband, this was the first time he had thought about it too, and he wrote someday maybe, or something, I think. So we both hadn't said no. And I realized at that point, anyone that had said no, definitely not, I didn't want to meet. And that was a bit of I was about 35, I think 35-ish. So yeah, that was the first time I'd actually gone, yeah, I think I do want children. But I wonder if that was also about the ticking clock, the whole thing that we're fed, that you have to have children, your latest window of opportunity is like 35 to 40. Obviously, we know people do have children in their 40s, but I think again, maybe this is a Gen X thing, an age thing. We've really been fed, TikTok, 35 years old, make your mind up now, love.
Yeah. No clocks have ever ticked. I literally just never saw having children as part of my life. I wasn't sure, like, when was I going to fit that in? I got stuff to do. Like, I'm going to have children. I'll have to literally put everything on hold. And yeah, I mean, it's not even like my career as a lawyer was going to suffer. I just thought, oh my God. I mean, it's bad enough having dogs and you can leave them at home on your own. Sorry, guys. So I do find it that, see, I'm a bit sad really, because now you're basically telling me you met the right man and now you want children.
Well, But so I ticked the box that actually went, yeah, I think I do. It wasn't like, yeah, I absolutely want them now. But it was like, yeah, actually, I think I do. And he had done the same. He'd gone, yeah, I kind of think I do, I think. And we're both 35 years old. And then 6 months later, I got pregnant accidentally. So that's not New Year's if my son's listening. He knows this. This isn't a revelation. But I do know deep down that if I hadn't have got pregnant at 35 and a half or 36, whenever you went, about that time, would we have sat down and gone, shall we have children then? Like, I don't know, because we were having so much fun and we were traveling and I hadn't really wanted children. So I don't know if I'd have, had that conversation. I don't know.
Yeah.
So fate was written for me on that one.
So you don't think there's any truth in the adage that you'll change your mind when you might meet the right man?
Well, it happened. Well, no, because I didn't. Well, did I choose? Yes, I suppose I did choose, because you still have a choice when you get pregnant. I think you may know that you don't want them if you know you're with the wrong person. Maybe it's more about that. I knew I was married to the wrong person, and I knew I didn't want to do lots of things with him, to be honest. There was a lot of things I didn't want to do with him, and actually I knew I needed to not be with him. So maybe it's more about, when you absolutely, I don't know. I mean, I think it's ridiculous to think it's all just linked to having the perfect man. I think that's the bit that's like,
Yeah. I had a thought and it disappeared. They do that a lot, my thoughts. This is, I blame it on lots of things. Yeah. So I find it funny that having children is and whether you make the decision to or not to, is this massive thing. And I also find it, considering we've got such a population explosion and everything, I do find it weird that they're so constantly trying to persuade women to have children as well. It feels very much to me, and this is probably partly because the decision I made very early on in my life, it feels like a method of control, that if you persuade women that this is the thing that they're going to do and that they have to do, and then you offer them incentives or punishments for not doing it, depending on who you're talking about, that, it's a little way of keeping them under control. And we all know that no one's sitting around going, how should we control women today? Though maybe they are. Like I said, I'm questioning everything in my life right now on conspiracy theories, but it does feel like it is a way to control women. And I don't know. I just never felt like it was something I wanted to do. I do still think that a lot of people just kind of like fall into it, which doesn't seem like the right way to bring children into the world to me, which is, again, I would feel like I'm being really awful to people because no problem, like, fine, if you want children, have children, please, I don't care. But also don't bully me into having children. There's a lot of talk about falling birth rates and stuff at the moment. We have an awful lot of people in the world, though, so maybe birth rates are falling and that's going to be a good thing. And I know that there's discussion about we need people to have children because of future economy and who's going to look after the elderly people and stuff like that. But I think I've said this before, I don't feel like that should be placed on individual people. It might be a population-wide thing, but it shouldn't be that, well, if you don't have children, think of the world. Go, I recycle.
I think I'd love to know, well, I know the answer, but you get married, for
You do
example.
this all the time. Yeah, I know.
I'd love to know, but actually, why aren't people asking men, are you looking forward to being a dad? Are you going to have a baby now, the two of you? I'd love to know from any men, have they ever been asked that question? Because it's obviously very gendered. And I think that's back to the annoyance that we're still seeing women as our only role in life is to give birth and, is to have babies. It's so narrow thinking. Obviously, we are the ones that can have babies. Obviously, that's biology. But it's so narrow thinking that right now that's all we bring to the party. I think, in the 50s, for example, our role was very, very much about being the homemaker and being the mother. But that was a long time ago. And yet still, we're expected to work because we want to, but also we have to, because financially, most people can't live off one salary. Yet we're still kind of expected to be a mum as well. And it's kind of like,
somehow be a stay-at-home mum and work full-time.
I know. and do everything else.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that's a big thing, and again, when we're talking about if they really wanna incentivize women to have children, but also you need to make it affordable for it to be a single income family, or you need to provide childcare for
Mm.
people that is unpaid. And they're talking about like the benefit system and like being able to cut down people's benefits and stuff, and yet still encouraging people to have children regardless of whether it's affordable. So ridiculous.
Well,
That's
I
what they
mean,
say.
as you said, give me my red cloak and white hat already, Although
Yeah, the cloaks are a nice colour.
I'd be sent off to the colonies anyway, so that's,
I do
that's
think
all
that
my.
this leads quite nicely into our next topic as well. So I just get like finish off when you're talking about not being able to um, survive without a two-income family, and therefore women having to work, or the husband and wife, mum and dad, man and woman who have produced a child, both of them having to work and bring in cash in order for them to actually survive as a family. Um, when you're talking about that kind of stuff, it also then doesn't consider all of the emotional labor that tends to fall on women as well. That being the ones that book the kids' doctor's appointments, even if dad then takes them to appointments and that kind of stuff. So I think we will discuss that in our next segment. Oh, look at me. I'm so professional with my little segues. Yes. So
And I think before we move on to that one, the generation bit is so key because obviously Jason Bateman, I don't know how old he is. My age, I suppose. I presume.
maybe
Yeah, come on, you're so quick at googling. I'm sure he's in his 50s.
I am. It's my skill. Google foo.
I'm sure he's in his 50s. So he's a Gen X.
57.
Pardon? How old is he?
57.
So he's a Gen X man talking to a Gen Z woman. I think she's Gen Z. I think. I don't think she's a millennial. And she's classic, older Gen Z. And she's like, I don't want kids. Like, there's such a divide between the expectation of our generation was definitely to have children. And the younger generations just are unapologetically going, I don't actually think that's what I want. It's also
Yeah,
worth
don't.
saying that, she's also young and successful and got a lovely husband and she's like
Got
really
stuff
happy,
to
like leave her
do.
alone. Yeah.
She's 33. She was born in 1992. So what that makes her like,
On the cusp.
does that, yeah, like geriatric Gen Z or something. Look, if we get geriatric millennials, then we get geriatric Gen Z. So,
Yeah,
okay.
and also geriatric mothers, pet pregnancies, anything over
Yes.
like 35 or something. That's what they
Yeah.
call it. I mean, wow, thanks.
Yeah. Oh God, I've got so much more I want to say on this now. We're running out of time. When you said geriatric pregnancies, that suddenly reminded me when I was diagnosed with cancer at 41, nobody asked me if I'd been considering children. But a friend who was like in her late 30s was then offered the option to freeze her eggs and stuff. So they don't ask you once
Ah,
you're past a certain age.
yeah.
That's a whole new topic for another time. Yeah,
Anyway,
don't go there.
example of women being told what to do with their bodies. Before we start the next topic, I'd like to just start with a trigger warning. In this segment, we will probably be talking about suicide and eating disorders. So if you are affected by any of this, you may want to skip to the next section. And we will also add support groups and numbers into the show notes for you to get any help if you need it. So the next topic is an article from the Times called Middle-Aged Women Face Mental Health Crisis in Silence. So an article has come out about how women in their late 40s and early 50s are struggling silently. For many of us, this is no surprise. The Times are writing it as if it's just been discovered, although all talking about this is really, really useful. So they refer to the fact that we are perimenopausal or menopausal, and you can have a lot of psychological symptoms. It's depression, low mood, anxiety, rage, all those kinds of things, as well as just struggling with no sleep, memory loss, all of the symptoms in menopause. It's a time where divorce is on the rise. It peaks in the UK anyway, in the early 50s for couples, divorce. Often that's because there's just a relationship breakdown, obviously, but also quite often the partner of the menopausal woman looks at them as if to say, like, you've changed, and it all breaks down. But sometimes also when women go through menopause, often on the other side, they look at their relationship and go, I need something better than this. They also, this is a time where you might be struggling with grief. Obviously, we're looking after aging parents. You might have loss in your life. And research does show that suicide peaks. The age group of the highest amount of suicides for women is late 40s. And also eating disorders are on the rise in late 40s women, particularly with like body changes that happen in menopause. So the article is basically sharing this information and also talking about how women are going through this and we're going through it without talking about it. Obviously, this is something I know because it's what I do. It's what my whole purpose with my Instagram and everything is about, getting women to understand what's happening and do something about it. They also talk about the other stuff that women are going through. So all of the above, all the things I've just listed, but also, as you've already alluded to, the silent labour, the invisible labour, the parenting, the looking after parents, the life admin, the housework, the cooking, but also working, ageism in the workplace is rife. Your boss not understanding your menopause and how it's affecting your job. Like, all this stuff is just like, it's becoming huge. And we so often, women, this is, put ourselves last. So we are the carer, the nurturer, the doer. We get all the shit done and our needs are just pushed aside, resulting in feeling lost, alone, isolated, invisible. But what would be great is to talk about that and also talk about our experiences and how women can get help. And before we move on to that conversation, I just, in case I forget to say it, want to say that we do know that when women are through this period and really postmenopausal and really have any symptoms that are left under control, they find this period of time, potentially in their 60s, really freeing. They leave their job, they do the thing they wanted to always do, they travel, they start a little business or a big business, they leave their relationship, so there is hope, there is good stuff ahead, but it's just kind of getting through this period is really, really fucking tricky. So,
So
yeah.
your little intro then just made me feel quite emotional. I thought I was going to be like fine, but it's just made me feel quite emotional because is this therapy?
I work with
It's
women
just,
day in, day out on this very topic. It's
yeah.
so upsetting, but so needed.
So I've always been, I don't know, there's all kinds of. I also know that a lot of women in when they perimenopausal or menopausal then get diagnosed with what has previously been undiagnosed ADHD and stuff as
Yeah.
well. So I also know that there's kind of a lot of that going around. I spend a lot of time going, are you sure we can't diagnose ADHD by a meme? Seems like a valid way to me. But I've always been a very in control and organized person. I can remember sitting in a minibus with my roller derby team on the way to a thing, and we were going around deciding what everyone's ideal jobs should be. And apparently, I should have been someone's PA. I was like in control of the world. Like, if we
I
need it,
concur with
Dem's
that.
going to
You are,
sort it out.
yes.
And obviously, my experience of menopause and perimenopause has been very different to most women's because of my cancer treatment at the age of like 40, 41. So I was kind of pushed over the edge at an age when everybody else was going gradually into it. And I'd had no menopausal symptoms before. My mum went through menopause very late. In fact, I don't think my mum went through menopause when she had a hysterectomy. So technically same as me, I guess, straight off the edge. But yeah, so I was very much in a different experience than that. But chemo combined with menopause, people say chemo brain, and then you also have like, menopause brain. You imagine all of those things in a big, massive fog. I completely lost that kind of organized. I never had a diary, paper or otherwise. I literally had everything in my head before. And it's only now in these last few years, I realize how much of my life I've spent being the organizer and how many times I have conversations with my husband where he goes, when is this happening? And I go, I have no idea. I'll have to get my diary. It is in the calendar. And, we have a shared calendar. And it's not his fault because I've done that my whole life. I've gone, well, next week we're doing this, and at 10 a.m. this is happening, and I have the list, and I manage it all. And it's only been since I haven't been able to process all that information in my brain that I realized how much I had been doing it previously and how much pressure it puts on me trying to keep doing it now, because it's become like a routine that, I'm going to do the shopping list and arrange for the shopping to be delivered and then figure out the schedule for tomorrow, so to make sure we can get everywhere. And we are in the process now of trying to make sure that that's a more equal split. I don't have to remember all this stuff, and that there's other jobs like, making sure the dogs get their medication ordered and stuff like that can be taken over, so that it's not more pressure on my plate. But it has been really hard kind of trying to deal with that and all the other things, and like, physical changes and emotional changes, and just, dealing with the fact that apparently I have incurable cancer. That's a nice extra layer on top of all the shit. So yeah, your little intro there made me surprisingly emotional. I was a bit like, oh my God, no.
Well, I think I talk a lot about generations and Generation X. Obviously, that's a big part of what I talk about, but I'm so much of this is generational. So our mothers and grandmothers, whilst they will have potentially suffered or not suffered, obviously some people have symptoms, some people don't. Generally speaking, they didn't work. We were brought up by these women who told us you can do anything. Like we were brought up by second wave feminists who were, well, I was definitely was, you can go out and you can do whatever you want, Kate. You can have the best career. You can be anything you want to be. But societally, we were still told we had to have babies, back to the last conversation,
Yeah.
and also be the homemaker and the provider, and to run the home. So all of us Gen X women are now hitting menopause, doing both of those things, whether it is parenting or not parenting. You're still running the house, so the invisible labor, having the career and being everything you ever wanted to be, and menopause. The people before us didn't have that. And I'm hoping the people below us, lower, coming through, won't have that, because the message isn't so much, even though it feels like it kind of is still, but it is less. You have to be the homemaker. It is, you don't have to have kids. You can do what you like. You could be whatever you want to be, but you don't have to be the homemaker as well. So I think it is very much a Gen X thing right now, but that's not to take that away, because it's happening right now.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I do think that it's been an unrecognized thing before for women. I mean, you think about the way Valium used to be handed out to women like
Well, of
sweeties and like Mother's Little Helper and stuff like that. So I think that there is, a previous history of that being a thing. But again, it's something that's always been treated as pathological, that women are going through this, and therefore something that needs to be medicated and treated, rather than there being a societal answer to it, that maybe other people in the house should be doing more, or that, you can't actually work as a lawyer and run the whole house and like take the kids to school, and it's too hard and someone needs to help.
Oh, absolutely. Women in the past struggled, but they didn't work quite like we have been
Like in the
encouraged.
same way. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think
It's that kind of the use of drugs and stuff as well. I think there's this thing, because obviously we know that suicide rates are higher in men than they are in women. Women tend to talk about their emotions and problems more than men do.
absolutely.
But I do think that there is a side of it that women don't talk about, and that kind of, they might talk about their emotions and how they feel, but not talking about the fact that it's because they're using all this extra emotional labor and that kind of thing. Oh my goodness, there's a M. Clarkson, I don't know if you follow her, and Alex Light, who have both had children and had real problems with morning sickness. And it's women that are going, oh, stop making such a fuss. Women have been going through this for years. So I think that there is that little bit of, we might talk about our emotions more, but there's some aspects just assumes that that's just what it is to be a woman, and that we have to just suffer through it. And therefore women don't talk about those things, and it can then become overwhelming. And then that's when you see that peak in suicide rates.
The article alludes to that, and we know that it's we put ourselves last because we're so busy running the business, doing the job, running the house, being a parent, looking after our parents, just doing all the stuff. And it's that old adage of when you're on an aeroplane and it says, you put on your oxygen mask first before you put on
Yeah.
your child's one. And even that as a parent seems ridiculous, because not ridiculous as in it's correct, but I know that I will save them first type of thing, because that is just how it is. And that's the problem, isn't it? So we're not actively getting help for ourselves. It's also worth saying, and this is really important and it's not mentioned in the article, is we also know women go to the doctor presenting with all these issues, and obviously you need to be checked, you haven't got something else wrong with you, but 9 times out of 10 it's menopause if you're like 49, if you're in that age bracket, but it's women are still getting like, oh, have some antidepressants and off you go. So we're not treating women, we're not listening
Oh,
to women.
please don't get me onto inequalities in women's healthcare
Well,
again,
no,
Kate.
we've
This is like,
talked about
we've
it a
only
lot.
got we got like another 5 minutes, and we were
Well,
talking
I
about
think
women's mental health crises, not that.
so. My advice when I'm speaking to women is, obviously you need to talk about it, obviously, whether that's to a therapist, a doctor, a friend, your partner, a stranger, Samaritans, etc. But I think what's really important, and it's something I've talked about quite a bit, is around we need men to understand menopause. It's so easy. There's a lot of like menopause, ageism, but actually, if you think women don't understand menopause, imagine what a man understands about menopause. And
Yeah.
obviously, I'm talking about heteronormative relationships here, but
Mhm.
we need the men in our lives to
That's the
understand.
word I was looking for earlier on when I was talking about
Oh,
having children. Thank you, Kate. Oh
yeah.
my God, that's so
So the men in our lives, so our dads, our husbands or partners, our sons, our brothers, the more men that understand what's happening. Like my husband, when his friends or work people, are moaning about their wives and how they've changed and how moody they are and or whatever, the usual, he says, well, she sounds like she's perimenopausal. How old is she? Do you know about the symptoms? And this is my husband. My son has on a number of occasions put his hand up in class and talked about menopause. Or when the teacher starts talking about menopause, he says, you need to follow my mum on social media, and everyone gets their phone
that's
out,
amazing.
which is amazing. But the point is relationships break down, and women, we suffer alone. And it's funny, you said about we don't always share our emotions. Men are going on all the time about how emotional we are, but actually we don't. We bottle it up, just get
Mm.
on and look after everybody else. And we need to start talking about it. And we need to start talking about it with the men in our lives so they can support us and understand it. And
I
if they don't,
I think
then
that's important because, yeah, we do talk about, things men do a lot, and you're going to go, not all men, but I don't think it's men's fault. If they don't tell you what they're feeling, you can't know. And if you don't tell them what you're feeling, then they can't know. If that's a situation that you're in, then you need to discuss what can be done within a relationship like that to help. And I mean, the same would go for like a same-sex relationship. Do you know what I mean? This is just literally how relationships work. You have to talk about what you're going through, because as far as I'm aware, I am watching the X-Files at the moment. So as far as I'm aware, people aren't actually psychic. And if they are, it's very rare. So, if you don't talk about it,
and I think
then they're not going to know.
just even if you can't discuss the boundaries that you need with your partner and your family, start to make them. So I am the human walking diary. I am the social calendar manager of the Beavis family. And to be fair, I am, because I am, I am here. I have a diary. I am really organized. I'm the most organized person in the house. And that's not because I'm a woman. I just am organized. But I have now bought a calendar. It's on the side of the fridge and everything's on there. And my new response to anything anybody asks me is, look at the calendar. Look at the calendar.
Mhm.
I don't know. Look at the calendar. My son, because he's planning gigs and stuff, he'll send me a text and he's like, what are we doing on the 23rd of March? I'm like, I don't know. You need to look at the calendar when you come home. Literally, that's all I'm saying. But slowly, people are going and looking at the calendar and even picking me up or picking each other up when things aren't written on the calendar. So I'm like, this is working. One thing has been taken away from me.
Yeah.
But obviously that's a small thing if you're really struggling with your mental health. But I think the more you can start looking after you and just setting yourself
I think sometimes if
time.
you catch that and set those boundaries early, it can help, if you can catch that early, it can stop that kind of slide into having real problems. Like I say, it was a shock for me because I'd done it and then it was kind of sudden that I suddenly went
Hmm,
into just not literally being able to hold this stuff in my head anymore. And why do I have to be the one that goes and looks for my calendar? So that's changed but it obviously takes a while. But yeah, I do think it's really important to, if you feel like you've gone past the setting boundaries and discussing it period, that you discuss it with a professional.
of
That's
course. One of the
always.
Yeah, without a doubt. One of the things I spend time with women, I talk about, what did you want to do when you were a teenager? Like, what was the vision? What was the thing you wanted to be, when you grew up? Or what's the thing you've always wanted to do and you've never had time? Like, write it down and start to work that into your life. So it could be, oh, I always wanted to, like, I always loved painting. It could be, I always was painting and drawing as a teenager. When was the last time you did that? 35 years ago. Okay, so why don't you buy a sketch pad? I used to customize my own clothes. I used to sew. I haven't sewed for forever and a day. And then last year I bought a sewing machine and I'm just starting. And I'll be like, I'm going to have a project on the go. And I think it's that bit about, what do you want with your life that you currently don't have? And I think people often think it's massive things, but it's just like, I always wanted to be a florist. I did always want to be a florist. So why don't I even just go on a flower arranging course? I know that sounds so banal, just
No,
so silly. It does in the way of, like, obviously, versus big stuff, but
yeah,
but it's just about putting that oxygen mask on first, so that when you're through it, when you've got help from your doctor, get your symptoms under control, talk to your partner, all this stuff. But when you're through it, wouldn't it be amazing if, you're 55, you're 60, and actually you paint all the time. And in fact, you travel and you go and paint in Greece. I mean, all those things, that Shirley Valentine thing, that we
yeah.
we were brought up with. We kind of forgot all of that, and now you're in the middle of it, and it's terrible right now. But let's just start thinking about, once you can sort out your symptoms, what's next?
Where do you want to be when you come out the other side?
Where do you want to be when you're 60, Gemma? Let's end on that.
Alive?
I think that's
Sorry, I don't have the cheerful answer to that question.
But I think that's a valuable, valid to
Yeah.
you, but also it's really to everybody. Like, let's
Yeah.
just live your life and
But
do the things you
also,
want to do.
yeah, I mean, that was the reason I said alive, was a real kind of knock to me. And that's something I'm doing. I'm going to Morocco at the start of May. At the start of March, I've never traveled. I've never been a big traveler, but I went to Croatia last year on my own. I'm going to Morocco on my own.
Brilliant.
I am doing those things. So I do think that is really important, to find your joy.
Absolutely.
So finally, I want to talk about the Super Bowl, which is
Oh,
kind of, yeah, a weird thing to talk about, when we're in the UK and it was on at like midnight. But obviously, it's been the hugest talking point this week. There's been so much going on. The Super Bowl is the world's biggest cultural moment. And this year it was particularly so. There was a lot of controversy. Oh, I'm going to say first, I did stay up and watch it, and I stayed up till the end, and I put a bet on, which I do every year, on loads of stuff I don't understand, and I'm 16 quid up. Yay!
yay!
But so there was a lot of controversy even before it even started, because in MAGA America, choosing a Spanish language artist who's been very outspoken about it as the halftime show in the form of Bad Bunny was controversial. So then they decided to layer onto that by having, I don't actually know who the people were that sang the national anthem and America the Beautiful. I don't actually know who they are. I'm really sorry. I'm terrible. But apparently, I think one of them was gay, and they've both been very outspoken about stuff. And also choosing Green Day to open the show. So there were then a lot of very controversial choices. And there was this Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA ran the alternative one with the incredibly awful for years, Kid Rock. So, yes, it was controversial before it even started. And then I watched it. I was disappointed not to see Green Day. I could hear them playing in the background, but apparently they did pull their punches a little bit. I have heard that they missed out some of the more controversial verses of some of their songs. So they did sing them because it was American Idiot that I heard in the background. And then Bad Bunny's halftime show actually happened. And I'll be honest, I feel like I really needed it. I spoke earlier on about kind of the anxiety, and that show was just like, I mean, I've seen somebody else say this, but it was when people say things like joy is resistance, that's what they mean. Is it was just an absolutely joyous show. Some people really got married in the middle of it. There were people dressed up as grass who've all been sharing their videos on social media, which is like absolutely amazing. It was just happy, and it's one of the best halftime shows I've seen in years, without a doubt. And I don't really follow music. Sorry, I know you're there with all you love it, don't you? But yeah, so I didn't really know who he was before the show either. But yesterday I was sat here listening to Bad Bunny, really enjoying myself. So that happened. And then the final thing that everyone's talking about, because we all know, I hope, that buying an ad spot during the Super Bowl is incredibly expensive. I think they were like $10 million this year or something absurd. And some of the ads were controversial this year. I think there generally isn't a lot. Americans are used to having pharmaceuticals advertised to them for everything, blood pressure meds, But this year, they're not very often in the Super Bowl. And this year there was an ad, and I'm going to say this very carefully because it was an ad for GLP-1s, but it wasn't actually an ad for GLP-1s. A lot of people are saying that it was terrible because that's what it was advertising and that it didn't mention the side effects. Now, my understanding is that if it had been an ad for GLP-1s, they would have had to mention the side effects. What it actually was an ad that used a loophole in the law, and they are offering a weight loss service for which a prescription to whatever they think would be the appropriate GLP-1 for you is going to be a part of it. So that's quite an important distinction because it is something that's happening in the UK as well. So that's a lot to talk about in 15 minutes. Which one should we start with? Should we start with Bad Bunny? Because you did know him and you've watched that show and it was amazing, right?
So, first things first, Bad Bunny is the most streamed person on the planet.
I know, like I say, I don't know anything about music, okay? This is just not my thing.
Where you been, Jamal? And also, my daughter is obsessed. She is going to marry him, apparently. She is obsessed. Bad Bunny is so cool as well. And not only is he, talented, his fashion is unbelievable. Like Met Gala, he always turns up in the most flamboyant, beautiful. He's amazing. So we are very much team Bad Bunny, even though it's not really my kind of music. Green Day is, but we'll come on to them in a second. The halftime show was brilliant. To be fair, the halftime show is generally brilliant. What I loved was we all expected, almost hoped, I think, for it to be political, because if you're left-leaning, you wanted him to, we were expecting him, and I think all Americans were expecting him to be, anti-ICE and talking about immigration and things. But to come out and just talk about love and have people getting married and, the only thing more powerful than hate is love, and God bless America, I love America, and then list every single country in America was iconic, but also so clever. So clever.
It was inspired. It was fantastic.
Yeah, really, really well thought of. And there was things within it that were amazing. Lady Gaga, amazing. Lady Gaga wearing a Puerto Rican designer and other key people wearing Puerto Rican designers. There were small businesses that were actually like little market store holders that were actually small businesses.
Wasn't it? Tonita, who runs a bar, I believe. Yeah.
Actually in, small businesses. So the whole thing was so clever, so inspiring, so amazing. The only thing that I would say that I was disappointed with was he was wearing Zara. And I think he had such an opportunity to wear a small independent Puerto Rican designer. But that's my only thing that I think, why are you wearing Zara? Because obviously Zara
are they a Spanish brand?
They are a Spanish brand, but they're also very well known for child exploitation on developing countries. So it's a bit For me,
Yeah,
that
it
was
was
my
an
only
interesting choice maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I was a bit like, Zara don't really need the bigging up, but amazing. Then there was Green Day. So Green Day, yes, I stayed up to watch Green Day. I didn't stay up to watch the whole thing. And yes, Channel 5 chose not to show it. So I, being me, live streamed it on TikTok.
Oh, did
Because
you? Oh, I wish I'd thought of that.
because that's how I work. And what it appeared was they had, yes, they sang American Idiot and other songs, and they only sang the sections of the songs that didn't have MAGA agenda or redneck agenda in, for example. However, what I am hearing on the land of TikTok is that that's what was televised. The people that were there said they actually did more, but it was not
Okay,
televised. So that's interesting.
that is
However,
interesting.
there's also the thought that some people were disappointed that they weren't mega political. But I also read things like, this is really a good thought, is that it was Bad Bunny's show.
Mm.
And if they'd have come out and, the three white guys as well, American, and just almost stole the show with what they were talking about or anything. And maybe, just maybe, they also got the memo that it was about love. So they, if they'd have come in all like
Too aggressive.
chanting what they normally chant, that would have been detrimental to Bad Bunny's message. So, we don't know. And some people said, were they censored? And who knows? I think the whole decision was this was going to be about joy.
Yeah.
So Green Day, we know their views. They didn't need to say it, I think is the thought.
See, I thought it was a really good choice to make it about that as well, rather than being
Mm.
kind of confrontational, because it meant that there wasn't, I mean, not that it stopped Donald Trump saying it was the worst halftime show he'd ever seen,
Even
but
though proving he watched it.
yeah, not that it stopped him, but I think it kind of removed opportunities to just talk about, to slag it off, I guess,
Oh, no, but have you not heard they want an investigation into the
Oh,
fact
because of
that
the lyric.
the lyrics are sexy?
Hmm.
And also they're outraged. This is quotes from leading MAGA women reporters. I don't know if they're politicians. Hookers twerking, quote unquote. No, they're actually dancers, and they're dancing the
Mm.
same way that they would have danced if Beyonce was singing or whoever was singing. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's dancing. And so I think they're trying to get that angle in, but it's like, can't, love is more powerful than hate. And,
They're trying to
this
find
got
some
really political.
outrage, yeah. But when you're being outraged with someone who was talking about love, it's a little bit more difficult than being outraged with somebody who was slagging you off and swearing. So yeah, I think it was a good choice, and it was a brilliant show, and it did lift me up a little bit, like I say, with the anxiety that's been sitting on my chest recently, and make me actually, normally I sit in silence. I know that a lot of people can't do this, and my husband always has music on, but I'm awful. I do. I just sit in silence. But yeah, I chose to put Bad Bunny on. Like, it is my kind of music, as it happens. I used to like that kind of stuff when I was a teenager. I can remember collecting glasses for my dad at a reggae thing. Anyway, that's irrelevant. But yeah, absolutely loved it. And it was amazing. And the football with Together We Are America, and it was absolutely fantastic. Absolutely loved it. And also very much loved seeing Pedro Pascal sneak in the background, because I love him. I'm going to marry him. And
Mhm.
he was in Buffy. Yeah, I'm already married.
Yeah.
God,
I
that's a
don't think
shame.
you're his type either.
No, I don't think I'm his type.
And Ricky
I don't
Martin.
know that makes it any less likely to happen.
I
So
know, that's true. And Ricky Martin as well. I mean, it was fantastic.
yeah.
And Lady Gaga. And, because we vintage ladies, like her styling, the hair, the
Oh,
flower.
so beautiful.
Oh, amazing, amazing, amazing.
Fantastic. Yeah.
But then the
There's no
advert.
point to this. There's no point to this conversation, by the way, listeners. We're just saying it was fantastic. That's it. We're not
It
going to
was
come out with some
fantastic.
kind of amazing at the end of this and just go, and what we've learned is, well, actually what we've learned is that love is more powerful than hate. So yes,
is.
we learn a thing.
So let's talk about the advert, because I didn't see
Yeah.
this because I didn't stay up. I have seen the advert. So, and obviously I understand the advert wasn't for GLP-1s, it was for the company but there was a lot of just, there's this ongoing thought around, should Serena Williams be the face of it? There's that conversation. And is it the right time to be selling it at a football, yeah. So what were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, again, see, I mean, I did do a post on this. This is my two pillars of content: joy and being angry with things. So, like I say, so Serena Williams advertising it, I do find icky, but
Mm.
sports people advertise random stuff all the time. You know, there's one on TV in the UK not so long ago with some sprinter or something advertising Muller Lite yogurts, and you're like, God, with the amount of exercise you do, you are not eating Muller Lite. This, they advertise icky things. This happens.
Mm.
I had a bit of an issue with in the ad, she's like flexing her muscles with the caption healthier on row, which does bother me because those muscles are results of a lifetime of athleticism, and
Yeah.
taking weight loss drugs is associated with a risk of
Muscle loss.
muscle loss. So that bothers me a bit. But genuinely, my main concerns with it are that advert was not designed for people in the UK to see. It wasn't actually shown during the live screening of the Super Bowl in the UK because it's not a UK advert. So,
Okay.
but it was shown during the American screening. And it's only since then that a lot of people are then sharing it and saying how awful it is. And then we are, and I know the irony, we are talking about it now, but we are then kind of doing some of their work for them. The other issue I have relates more to what it's doing in the UK, because I do think it is important that it wasn't an ad for GLP-1s. It's important that it was an ad for Ro, who are a healthcare provider, because it's exactly the same thing. And this is something that I just want people to know. It's exactly the same thing that's going on in the UK at the moment. It's illegal to advertise pharmaceuticals, like prescription-only pharmaceuticals in this country. You know, like properly illegal, jail time illegal, not just like
Mm.
not recommended and they'll slap you with a fine. But I'm pretty sure that we've all seen ads for GLP-1s online,
Yeah.
or we
I mean,
feel
I'd
like
say
we've
there's
seen ads for
hundreds.
GLP-1s online. But what we're actually seeing is ads for a healthcare provider.
Oh,
So
you're
they're
right.
offering us a weight loss service, which will almost certainly include a prescription-only medication. So the ASA has recently been cracking down on this a lot, and I think that this ad gives us an opportunity to talk about that and say that it is illegal. If you see mention of a GLP-1 in an ad, if you see a picture of the syringe, if you see a picture of a vial of medication with a label on the front, if you see anything like that in an advert, any mention at all of a pharmaceutical product, it is illegal. And the ASA are clamping down on it, and people can go to prison for it. So
How you'd see adverts for Nurofen.
Nurofen isn't a prescription-only medication.
Oh, I see. So it's not a medication, it's a prescription only.
No.
So,
It's
to be clear,
prescription-only medication. So GLP-1s are a prescription-only medication.
so when you see an advert for, say, I'm just thinking like MedExpress or something, like
Yeah.
they are advertising themselves as a healthcare provider, and then
Mhm.
within it they may mention they do GLP-1s.
Yes. So they may be advertising their weight loss service, which sells GLP-1s.
So, what would be really interesting though is where influencer marketing comes in, because
Exactly.
there are people making content about GLP-1s, their journey, which I suppose is, are they allowed to? Yes, I presume they are, because they're talking about them, but there are people then also saying quite actively, oh, and I've got a discount code, or I've got, which actually the ASA affiliate marketing is advertising. So if I share something where I get a small cut, if I sell, I don't know, if I talk about this chocolate or beauty products and I get a 1%, paid back to me from the brand, I
1%.
have to declare it as an ad, which sometimes feels a bit weird because it's like kind of
Yeah.
not an ad. I'm getting like a little bit of money back, but I am
Mm.
getting a little bit of money back. So therefore it's an ad. But I wonder how many people are, it's,
I suspect that there is a lot of that, because yeah, if you're doing something that you would have had to have declared it as an ad by ASA standards, and it involves a prescription only medication, then yeah, technically you're breaking the law.
well, you are,
Hey. But yeah, specifically the ads during the Super Bowl, which caused a lot of controversy. I think that some of the controversy is in this country. I think some of the controversy is looking at the wrong thing, personally, and that I don't care what Serena Williams advertises. I don't care if most of the ad was AI generated. I don't care about Americans having pharmaceutical products sold to them, and that they're using a loophole in America to get around not mentioning any potential side effects. I don't care, but I do care when it happens in this country and people use it to get around things. And I do care that it normalizes private healthcare in the middle of the kind of discussions we're having about NHS at the moment, which is, a worrying thing. So yeah, I do care about those things. So yeah, it's been quite a controversial ad and unusual for the Super Bowl to have an ad like that in it, which I think just goes to show how much of, if they're willing to pay that amount of money, these drugs are making them a lot of money, putting people on them. And I think that that's important to remember as well. It's no different from, weight loss companies like Slim Fast and Weight Watchers and Slimming World in this country offering you a service that didn't come with drugs, and they were making a lot of money out of it.
I wonder what adverts they normally have, like Coca-Cola or something. I'm wondering what they historically have had.
Beer, maybe.
Yeah, Bud.
I don't know. I literally now can't remember any adverts in previous years, but they're big. They cost a lot of money. Cars, I imagine, advertise a lot.
Yeah.
That feels like a thing that would get advertised a lot, doesn't it? Spend an absolute fortune. But
overall,
the takeaway, I think, that I want to leave from a conversation about the Super Bowl, apart from remembering to report any ads you see that actually mention GLP-1s because they get on my nerves. If we're not going to do that, I think the takeaway that I want us to have is that love is stronger than hate. Bad Bunny's message. Let's take that with us.
And apparently, according to my daughter, he's going to be my son-in-law.
Okay. Good luck with that.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us for another roundup of midlife chat, hot takes, and occasional moaning. Well, quite a bit of moaning.
Make sure you hit subscribe so your podcast app gently nudges you every Friday, because honestly, who remembers anything without a reminder these days? And also, we like people liking us because we're very needy.
And if you fancy being extra lovely, leave us a rating or a review. It helps more brilliant women like you find us. Have a great weekend, everyone, and make sure you find time for yourself. You deserve it.